Lisa Chen wiped down the last table at Murphy's Diner and looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight on New Terra Station, and the place was empty except for her. The dinner rush had been slow tonight, with only a few human traders, and one curious alien who had ordered 3 servings of pancakes. She was tired. Her feet hurt from standing all day, and she still had to clean the kitchen before going home to her tiny apartment. Lisa had been working at the diner for 2 years. Now, ever since she arrived on the station looking for a new start, it was not the life she had dreamed of, but it paid the bills. The diner was small and old-fashioned, designed to look like the Earth restaurants that homesick humans remembered. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floors, and a long counter, with spinning stools. Pete Murphy, the owner, had tried to make it feel like home for the humans who worked on the station. Most of the customers were human, though sometimes aliens would come in out of curiosity. Lisa was counting the money in the register when she heard a noise from the alley behind the building. It sounded like something heavy had fallen over. Paused and listened. The station was usually quiet at this time of night, but there were always maintenance crews working somewhere. The noise came again, followed by what sounded like a low growl. Lisa felt her heart speed up. There were security officers on the station, but they could not be everywhere at once. She thought about calling them, but then she heard something else. It sounded like someone was in pain. She grabbed a flashlight from behind the counter and walked to the back door. The alley was used for deliveries and garbage pickup. It was narrow and dark, with high walls on both sides. Lisa opened the door slowly and stepped outside. The smell hit her first. It was like metal and smoke, with something else she could not identify. She turned on the flashlight and swept the beam across the alley. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Then the light caught something that made her gasp. There was a creature sitting against the far wall of the alley. It was huge, maybe 12 feet tall, even sitting down. Its body was covered in dark scales that looked like armor, and it had wings folded against its back. Lisa knew what it was immediately. She had seen pictures and videos, but never one in person. It was a drachnary. The drachnary were famous throughout the galaxy as warriors and soldiers. They served in the militaries of dozens of worlds and were known for their strength, their flying skills, and their strict code of honor. They were also known for being proud and sometimes dangerous. This one looked different from the pictures Lisa had seen. Its scales were dull and scratched. One of its wings appeared to be injured, hanging at an odd angle. There were cuts and bruises on its arms and face. Most shocking of all, it looked thin. Lisa had never heard of a drachnary being hungry, but this one clearly was. The creature's eyes opened as her flashlight beam found it. They were golden and bright, even in its weakened state. It looked at her for a long moment, and Lisa felt frozen in place. She had heard that drachnary could be aggressive when cornered, but instead of attacking, the dragon spoke. Its voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Human," it said in accented but clear English, "you should not be here. It is not safe." Lisa found her voice. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" The drachnary made a sound that might have been laughter, but there was no humor in it. "I am fine. Please go back inside." "You do not look fine," Lisa said. She took a step closer, though every instinct told her to run. "When did you last eat?" The dragon's eyes narrowed. "That is not your concern, small human." Lisa looked at the creature more carefully. Now that she was closer, she could see that it was wearing the torn remains of what looked like a military uniform. There were patches and metals on the fabric, though many were missing or damaged. This had been a soldier, maybe even an officer. "What happened to you?" she asked quietly. For a moment, the drachnary did not answer. Then it seemed to slump further against the wall. "I made choices that my people did not approve of. Now I am no longer welcome among them." Lisa felt a stab of sympathy. She knew what it was like to be far from home with nowhere to go. "How long have you been here?" 3 days, the dragon admitted. "I will move on soon. I do not wish to cause trouble for the station." 3 days without food, Lisa thought. No wonder it looked so weak. She made a decision that would have surprised her friends back on Earth. "Wait here," she said. "What are you doing?" The Drachnary called after her as she headed for the door. Getting you something to eat. Lisa went back into the diner and straight to the kitchen. She had been planning to eat her own dinner break meal before going home. It was beef stew that she had made herself, with fresh bread and a piece of apple pie that Pete had left for the staff. She had been looking forward to it all day. Instead, she packed it all into a large container and grabbed a bottle of water and some utensils. She also took one of the diner's clean tablecloths and some napkins. If this dragon was going to eat, it would eat with dignity. When she returned to the alley, the Drachnary was watching the door. Its golden eyes followed her as she approached. "You do not have to do this," it said. "I know," Lisa replied. She spread the tablecloth on the ground between them and set out the food. The smell of the beef stew filled the alley. But everyone deserves a hot meal. The dragon stared at the food, then at her. "I cannot pay you. I am not asking you to pay." "Then why?" Lisa thought about it. She could not explain it in words that would make sense to a proud warrior species. She just knew that seeing someone hungry, regardless of what they looked like or where they came from, made her want to help. "Because it is the right thing to do," she said simply. The Drachnary continued to stare at her for a long moment. Then slowly and carefully, it reached for the container of stew. Its clawed hands were surprisingly gentle as it lifted the food. "What is your name, human, Lisa Chen?" "I am Zixter, formerly commander of the 3rd Wing of the Drachnary Defense Force." The dragon's voice carried a weight of lost pride. "I will remember this kindness, Lisa Chen. By the ancient codes of my people, I am now in your debt." Lisa did not understand what that meant, but she smiled anyway. "Just eat. You need your strength." As Zixter began to eat, Lisa sat down on an empty crate and watched. She had no idea that this simple act of human kindness would change both their lives forever and eventually reach across the galaxy to touch 20,000 soldiers. Lisa woke up to the sound of her alarm clock buzzing loudly. She had barely slept after her encounter with the dragon in the alley. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those golden eyes and heard that deep voice thanking her. She wondered if Zixter was still there, or if he had moved on during the night like he said he would. She got dressed quickly and grabbed her work bag. The morning shift at Murphy's Diner started early, and Pete did not like it when his employees were late. Lisa lived only a few blocks from the diner, so she usually walked to work. It gave her time to wake up and think about the day ahead. But as she turned the corner toward the diner, Lisa stopped walking and stared in complete shock. The entire street was filled with soldiers. They were not human soldiers. These were Drachnary. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They stood in perfect rows wearing full military armor that gleamed under the station's artificial lights. Their wings were folded neatly against their backs, and they all faced the same direction, toward Murphy's Diner. Lisa could not move. She had never seen so many Drachnary in one place. Each one was massive, easily twice her height. Their armor was decorated with symbols and markings that she did not understand. Some carried weapons, though they were all sheathed or holstered. The silence was complete. One of them spoke, or moved. A few other humans had gathered at the edges of the crowd, staring and whispering to each other. Lisa recognized Mrs. Rodriguez from the flower shop and Jake from the transport office. They all looked as confused and frightened as she felt. Lisa. She turned to see Pete Murphy pushing through the crowd of onlookers. He was a big man with gray hair and a mustache, an ex-military cook who had opened the diner when he retired. He looked worried and angry at the same time. "What the hell is going on here?" Pete demanded as he reached her. "These dragons have been here since dawn. They are blocking the whole street. Nobody can get to the diner." "I do not know," Lisa said. Though she was starting to have a terrible suspicion, Pete looked at the massive formation of soldiers and shook his head. "The station security is going crazy. They have called for backup from 3 sectors. Everyone thinks there is going to be a war or something." Lisa looked more carefully at the soldiers. Now she could see that there were even more of them stretching. Down the side streets, the formation was enormous, organized into perfect military units. She had never seen anything like it. "We need to call the authorities," Pete said. "This is way above our pay grade." Before Lisa could answer, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "There is no need for authorities. She turned around and saw Zixter walking toward them. He looked different from the night before. His scales had been cleaned and polished. His injured wing was wrapped, but held straight. He wore a simple gray uniform without the medals and patches from his torn military clothes. He walked with dignity, though Lisa could still see the pain in his golden eyes. "You," Pete said, pointing at the dragon. "Are you responsible for this?" Zixter ignored Pete and spoke directly to Lisa. "I've tried to stop them. I sent messages telling them not to come." But word had already spread through the underground networks. "What word?" Lisa asked, though she was afraid she already knew. "That a human female showed honor to a disgraced Drachnary commander. That she fed me when I was starving and asked for nothing in return." Zixter gestured toward the massive formation of soldiers. "These warriors were under my command for many years. When they heard what you did, they came." Pete looked back and forth between Lisa and the dragon. "What is he talking about? What did you do?" Lisa felt her face turn red. "I just gave him some food last night. He was hungry." "Food?" Pete stared at her. "You gave food to a dragon, and now there are thousands of them blocking my diner." Zixter stepped closer to Lisa. "In our culture, what you did creates what we call a life debt. When someone saves your life or shows you honor when your own people will not, that creates a bond that must be repaid." "I did not save your life," Lisa protested. "I just gave you dinner. As a starving warrior far from home with no hope of aid, food is life." Zixter looked at the soldiers. "Every one of these warriors wants to receive a meal from your hands. In our tradition, accepting food from someone who holds a life debt transfers some of that honor to the receiver." Lisa felt dizzy. "How many are there?" 20,312, Zixter said quietly. "Every soldier who ever served under me, and many who served under officers who served under me." Word spread faster than I could stop it. Pete sat down heavily on a nearby bench. 20,000 dragons want to eat at my diner that seats 30 people. A new voice joined the conversation. "Excuse me, are you Lisa Chen?" They turned to see a woman in an expensive suit walking toward them. She was tall and blonde, with the kind of confident walk that said she was used to being in charge. Behind her came two men in security uniforms and someone carrying a camera. "I am Ambassador Kate Williams from the Human Diplomatic Corps," the woman said. "We need to talk immediately." Lisa looked around at the massive crowd of dragon soldiers, the growing number of human onlookers, the news camera, and the important-looking diplomat. All of this because she had given a hungry stranger something to eat. "This is insane," she whispered. Zixter heard her and nodded sadly. "I am sorry. I never intended for this to happen. We'll tell them to leave." "Can you do that, Ambassador?" Williams asked sharply. "I can try. But they did not come because I ordered them to. They came because of their own honor code. They may choose not to listen to a disgraced commander." "What happens if they do not leave?" Pete asked. The ambassador looked grim. "Then we have 20,000 heavily armed alien warriors occupying a civilian area of the station. Other species are starting to take notice. Some are sending their own military forces to observe. This could become a very serious diplomatic incident." Lisa looked out at the sea of dragon soldiers. They stood as still as statues, but she could feel their eyes on her, all of them waiting for something she did not understand. "What do they want from me?" she asked. "They want you to feed them," Zixter said simply. "I tweet. Each one wants to receive a meal from your hands, the same way you fed me. Only then will their honor be satisfied." Lisa did some quick math in her head. 20,000 soldiers. Even if she could serve one every minute, it would take more than 13 days working non-stop. That was impossible. "There has to be another way," she said. Ambassador Williams stepped forward. "Miss Chen, I need you to understand something. This situation is unprecedented. Never in recorded history has a single human created this kind of response from the Drachnary military. Right now, you are the most important person on this station, possibly in this entire sector of space." Lisa looked at the diplomat, then at Pete, then at Zixter, and finally at the endless rows of waiting soldiers. All she had wanted to do was help someone who was hungry. Now the whole galaxy seemed to be watching. "What am I supposed to do?" she asked. Feed them, Ambassador Williams said, all of them, before this becomes something much worse than a diplomatic incident. Lisa felt the weight of 20,000 pairs of golden eyes watching her, waiting for her decision. The small act of kindness that had seemed so simple the night before had become something much bigger than she ever could have imagined. Ambassador Williams led Lisa, Pete, and Zixter into Murphy's diner, away from the crowds and cameras. The inside of the small restaurant felt strange and quiet compared to the thousands of soldiers waiting outside. Lisa could see dragon faces pressed against the windows, watching everything. "First, I need to explain what you have gotten yourself into," the ambassador said as they sat down in a corner booth. "The Draknari have one of the most complex honor systems in the known galaxy. What you did last night was not just giving food to a hungry person. In their culture, it was something much more important." Lisa rubbed her temples. She was getting a headache. "I still do not understand why feeding one dragon brought 20,000 of them here." Ambassador Williams pulled out a small computer tablet and showed Lisa a picture of Zixter in full military dress. He looked proud and strong, covered in medals and honors. Commander Zixter was not just any Draknari officer. He was one of their most respected military leaders. He commanded their third wing, which included over 30,000 soldiers across multiple worlds. Zixter said quietly from across the table. "I am no longer that person." "What happened to you?" Lisa asked. Zixter was quiet for a long moment. 6 months ago, my superiors ordered me to attack a colony world called Haven's Rest. It was populated by refugees from a war zone. Families with children who had nowhere else to go. The attack would have killed thousands of innocent people. "So you refused," Lisa said. "I told my commanders that attacking defenseless civilians was without honor. They said I was weak and soft. They stripped me of my rank and banished me from Draknari space." Zixter's golden eyes looked sad. "Most of my soldiers were ordered to stay silent about what happened. They could not speak in my defense without being punished themselves." Ambassador Williams nodded. "But when word got out about what Lisa did, it gave them a way to show support without directly disobeying orders. By coming here to receive food from her hands, they are saying that they believe their former commander was right to stand up for her." "What he believed in?" Pete leaned back in his chair. "So this is not really about food. This is about politics." "It is about honor," Zixter corrected. "But yes, there are political implications. If 20,000 Draknari soldiers publicly support me, it will put pressure on the military leadership to reconsider my case." Lisa felt overwhelmed. "I just wanted to help someone who was hungry. I did not want to get involved in alien politics." "I know," Ambassador Williams said gently. "But like it or not, you are involved now. The question is what we do about it. Can we just tell them to go home?" Pete asked. "We can try," the ambassador said. "But if they refuse, we will have a much bigger problem. Other alien species are already watching this situation. Some of them see the Draknari as a threat. If 20,000 Draknari soldiers refuse to leave a civilian station, it could be seen as an act of aggression. That could start a war," Lisa said, horrified. "It could. Or it could destroy the peace treaties that keep this part of space stable." Ambassador Williams looked serious. "The safest option is to give them what they want." Lisa looked out the window at the sea of waiting soldiers. "But how? Even if I worked every minute of every day, it would take weeks to feed them all, and Pete's diner cannot handle that many people." "We will need help," Pete said slowly. "A lot of help, Ambassador." Williams smiled for the first time since arriving. That might be possible. "The human community on this station is small but close-knit. If we explain the situation, they might be willing to help." "What kind of help?" Lisa asked. "Kitchens, supplies, volunteers? We would need to turn this into a community effort." The ambassador looked thoughtful. "There are also non-humans on the station who might want to help. This could become a symbol of cooperation between species." Zixter looked surprised.
"Spare would help feed Draknari soldiers?"
"Some might. Not everyone sees your people as enemies. Many species respect the Draknari military tradition, even if they fear your weapons. Ambassador Williams turned to Lisa. But it all depends on you. Are you willing to do this? Lisa looked around the table at the three faces watching her. Pete looked worried but determined. Ambassador Williams looked hopeful but tense. Zixer looked grateful but ashamed that he had caused so much trouble. If I say no, what happens? Soldiers will probably stay until their honor is satisfied, Zixter said. That could take months. Eventually, the station authorities will try to force them to leave. That could lead to fighting. And if I say yes, then we spend the next few days trying to feed 20,000 dragon soldiers, Pete said. It will be the biggest restaurant operation in the history of the galaxy. Lisa was quiet for several minutes. Outside, she could see more news crews arriving. Security officers were setting up barriers to control the crowds of curious onlookers. The whole situation was getting bigger and more complicated by the hour. But when she looked at Zixter, she remembered how he had looked the night before. Hungry, alone, and hopeless. He had been thrown away by his own people for doing what he thought was right. The soldiers outside were supporting him the only way they could. Okay, she said finally. I will do it. Ambassador Williams looked relieved. Are you sure? No, I am not sure about anything, Lisa admitted. But I cannot let this turn into a war because I was too scared to help. Pete reached across the table and patted her hand. Don't not worry, kid. We'll figure it out. I have some contacts in the food service industry, and I know the layout of this station better than most. I will help in any way I can, Zixter said. Though I understand if you prefer that I stay away from the actual serving. No, Lisa said firmly. You started this with me. We will finish it together. Ambassador Williams stood up, and we need to start planning immediately. We'll contact the station authorities and get permission to use the main plaza. We will also need to coordinate with security to make sure this stays peaceful. How long do we have? Lisa asked. The soldiers have been waiting since dawn. They are disciplined, but they are also hungry. I would say we have maybe 2 days to get organized before the situation becomes unstable. Lisa took a deep breath. 2 days to organize the largest feeding operation in galactic history. 2 days to prevent a diplomatic crisis. 2 days to show 20,000 alien soldiers what human hospitality really meant. She looked out at the waiting army and made a decision that surprised her. She was not going to just feed them. She was going to make sure they never forgot it. Let's get started, she said. Outside, the Draconary soldiers continued their silent vigil, unaware that the small human waitress had just accepted the biggest challenge of her life. The transformation of New Terra Station's main plaza began at dawn. Lisa stood in the middle of what had been an empty space just hours before and watched as dozens of humans worked together to build something amazing. Marcus Rodriguez, the head chef from the station's biggest restaurant, had brought his entire kitchen staff and enough equipment to feed an army. Helen Brooks from supply management had somehow found enough food to last for days. Even Dr. Alan Foster had closed his medical clinic for the morning to help set up tables. I still cannot believe we are doing this, Pete said, as he helped carry another load of cooking equipment. He was sweating but smiling. 20 years in, the restaurant business, and I never thought I would be part of something like this. Lisa was amazed at how quickly word had spread through the human community. When Ambassador Williams had sent out the call for volunteers, nearly every human on the station had offered to help. They brought pots, pans, tables, chairs, and more food than Lisa had ever seen in one place. But the biggest surprise came when the first non-human volunteers arrived. "Excuse me," said a voice behind Lisa. She turned to see a tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. "I am Keftel of the Zephyrian Trade Guild. We heard about your project and wish to contribute." The Zephyrian was followed by several others of his species, all carrying containers of what looked like golden fruit. These are honey fruits from our home world. They are very nutritious and taste good with most types of meat. Lisa stared at them. "You want to help feed the Dragnari? The Dragnari have always been honorable in their business dealings with us," Keftal explained. "If they say this human female deserves respect, then we believe them." More aliens began arriving throughout the morning. The aquatic pelagics brought containers of their algae supplements. The crystalline ethereals offered energy-rich minerals that they said would help with strength and healing. Even some of the insect-like chitons brought spices and seasonings. "This is incredible," Ambassador Williams said as she watched the diverse group of species working together. "I have never seen anything like this level of cooperation." Lisa felt overwhelmed by all the help, but also grateful. She had been terrified that she would have to face this challenge alone. Instead, she found herself at the center of something that felt more like a celebration than a crisis. The cooking area was set up like a giant assembly line. Marcus and his team prepared the main dishes in huge quantities.
Ow!
The alien volunteers added their contributions to create meals that were nutritious and filling. Volunteers from a dozen different species worked side by side, following Lisa's simple plan. The plan itself had come to Lisa the night before, when she could not sleep. She realized that the Draconary honor code required each soldier to receive food directly from her hands, but it did not say how much food. So she decided to give each soldier a symbolic portion, a piece of bread or a cup of soup, while the volunteers served the main meal. "It is like a receiving line at a wedding," she had explained to Ambassador Williams. "I will hand them something personally, say a few words, and then they move on to get their full meal from the others." As the first day of serving began, Lisa took her position at the front of the line. Zixter stood beside her, wearing a clean uniform that someone had found for him. He would help translate and explain things when needed. He asked quietly. Lisa looked out at the line of Draconary soldiers stretching as far as she could see. Each one stood at attention, waiting patiently for their turn. She had never been more nervous in her life. "No," she said honestly. "Us do it anyway." The first soldier stepped forward. He was enormous, even for a Draconary, with scars on his arms and face that spoke of many battles. Lisa handed him a piece of fresh-baked bread and looked up into his golden eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said simply. The soldier took the bread with surprising gentleness. "No, human, Lisa Chen. Thank you for showing honor to our commander when no one else would." His voice was deep and formal. "I am Captain Werndock of the 2nd Battalion. I flew with Commander Zixter for 8 years. He is the finest officer I have ever served under." Lisa felt tears in her eyes. "He told me about Haven's Rest. You supported his decision?" "We all did. But we could not say so without being punished ourselves. This is our way of speaking when words are forbidden." The captain bowed slightly and moved on to receive his full meal from the volunteers. The second soldier was younger, maybe the Draconary equivalent of a human in his 20s. He seemed nervous as he approached Lisa. "I am Lieutenant Skixmar," he said quietly. "This is my first assignment away from the homeworld. When I heard what our commander did, I knew I was serving under a leader I could respect." Lisa handed him his bread and smiled. "What did you think of his decision?" "I thought he was the bravest Draconary I had ever met. It takes more courage to say no to your superiors than to fight any enemy." The young soldier paused. "And now I think the same about you, human Lisa Chen." As the day continued, Lisa found herself having brief conversations with soldier after soldier. She learned about their families, their fears, their hopes, as many of them had children. Some had never been away from their homeworlds before. All of them spoke of Zixter with deep respect and affection. "He saved my life on the battlefield at Cordon Prime," one told her. "He helped my brother get medical treatment when the military doctors said it was too expensive," said another. "He always made sure his soldiers were fed before he ate." A third added, "By midday, word of the event had spread beyond the station. News crews from across the galaxy were broadcasting live coverage. Ships from other worlds had arrived just to witness what was being called the Great Feeding." But what struck Lisa most was how the atmosphere had changed. What had started as a tense military standoff had become something like a festival. Draconary soldiers were sharing stories with human volunteers. Alien species that rarely spoke to each other were working together. Children from the station were playing games with off-duty soldiers. "This is not what I expected," Zixter said during a brief break. "What did you expect?" Lisa asked. "I thought it would be formal, cold, military. I thought my soldiers would get their food and leave." He looked around at the mixing crowd of species. "I did not expect them to be making friends." Lisa smiled as she watched a group of human children teaching a young Draconary soldier how to play a clapping game. Maybe that is what happens when you feed people. They stop being strangers and start being friends. As the sun set on the first day, they had served nearly 8,000 soldiers. Lisa's feet hurt, and her voice was getting hoarse, but she felt happier than she had in months. Tomorrow, they would serve the rest. And this amazing event would be over. But something told her that the effects would last much longer than the food. On the 5th day, Lisa handed a piece of bread to the last Draknari soldier in line. His name was Sergeant Thixer, and he had traveled the farthest to be there, coming from a mining station 3 star systems away. Like all the others, he thanked her with deep respect before moving on to receive his full meal. Lisa stood there for a moment, hardly believing it was over. For 5 days straight, she had personally greeted every single one of the 20,000 soldiers. Her hand was sore from shaking so many clawed hands. Her voice was almost gone from talking, but she had done it. The plaza erupted in a sound unlike anything she had ever heard. 20,000 Draknari voices rose together in what Zixter later told her was their traditional victory song. The sound shook the windows of nearby buildings and made the ground vibrate under her feet. Then, as one, every soldier in the plaza dropped to one knee and bowed their heads toward Lisa. "What are they doing?" she whispered to Zixter. "They are naming you Honorary War Sister," he said, and she could hear the emotion in his voice. "It is the highest honor our people can give to someone who is not Draknari. You are now considered part of our military family forever." Lisa felt tears running down her face. She had never expected anything like this when she gave a hungry stranger some soup 5 days ago. The ceremony continued with speeches from various Draknari officers. They spoke in their own language, but Ambassador Williams translated the important parts for the news cameras. They declared Murphy's Diner a sacred site and promised that any human who needed help would always be welcome among the Draknari people. But the biggest surprise came when a new ship arrived at the station that evening. "That is a Draknari High," Command Vessel Zixter said as they watched it dock. His voice was tight with worry. "They have come to investigate." Lisa felt her stomach drop. "Are you in trouble? We will find out soon enough." The next morning, 3 high-ranking Draknari officials came to the diner. They wore formal dress uniforms covered in medals and honors. Lisa recognized them as the kind of people who were used to being obeyed without question. The leader was a female Draknari with silver scales and wise old eyes. She introduced herself as General Vexthera, Supreme Commander of the Draknari Defense Force. "Commander Zixter," she said formally, "you have caused quite a disturbance." Zixter stood at attention. "Yes, General. I accept full responsibility." "Do you?" The general looked around the diner, then at Lisa. "Because from what I have observed, this human female seems to be the one who fed 20,000 of our soldiers." "I asked for none of this," Zixter said quickly. Lisa Chen acted out of kindness, not politics. General Vexthera studied Lisa. For a long moment, "Is this true, human? Did you feed my former commander expecting nothing in return?" Lisa felt nervous under the general's intense stare, but she answered honestly. "Yes, ma'am. He was hungry. I had food. It seemed like the right thing to do." "The right thing to do," the general repeated slowly. She looked at the other officers with her. "What do you think of that reasoning?" One of the younger officers spoke up. "General, the humans' actions have created a diplomatic situation. 20,000 soldiers disobeying orders to gather here. Were they disobeying orders?" The general interrupted. "What orders were given regarding this situation?" The officer looked confused. "Well, no specific orders, but then they broke no rules." General Vexthera turned back to Zixter. "Commander, you were relieved of duty for refusing to attack civilians on Haven's Rest." "Yes, General. At the time, the High Command felt your decision showed weakness. However, recent intelligence has revealed that Haven's Rest was indeed populated entirely by refugees, including over 15,000 children." The general paused. "Your assessment of the situation was correct." Zixter looked shocked. "General, furthermore, the public response to these events has put considerable pressure on our government to reconsider its military policies. The sight of 20,000 Draknari soldiers honoring a human for her kindness has been broadcast across the galaxy. It has shown our people in a positive light that we have not seen in years. Lisa watched as understanding dawned in Zixther's golden eyes. You are hereby restored to active duty with full rank and honors, General Vexthera announced. However, you will be assigned to a new position. We are creating a Department of Interspecies Relations, and you will head it. General, I am honored. But the position comes with one requirement, the general continued. You will establish your headquarters here on New Terra Station. We believe continued contact with humans, particularly this human, will be beneficial for our people. Lisa felt surprised and happy at the same time. Zixther would not have to leave. 6 months later, Lisa was working her usual shift at Murphy's Diner when a familiar group walked through the door. Zixther came in first, followed by 2 young Drachnary officers who were part of his new department. Behind them came Captain Werndock and a handful of other soldiers who had become regular customers. The usual table? Lisa asked with a smile.
These,
Zixther said, and thank you. The diner had changed a lot since the Great Feeding. Pete had expanded into the building next door to handle all the new customers. The walls were covered with pictures from that amazing week, and there was a special plaque by the door declaring it an honor meal site. Every day, beings from dozens of different species came to eat at Murphy's Diner. Some came because they had heard the story and wanted to see where it happened. Others came because they had learned about the honor meal program that Lisa had started, where anyone in need could get a free meal, no questions asked. But most came because word had spread that this was a place where different species could sit together as equals and friends. Order up, called Marcus Rodriguez from the kitchen. He had become Pete's partner in the expanded restaurant and loved the challenge of cooking for so many different types of aliens. Lisa brought the food to Zixther's table and sat down for a moment. It was a slow afternoon, and she had learned that her dragon friend valued these quiet conversations. Any interesting cases today? She asked. 3 trade disputes, 1 cultural misunderstanding, and a marriage proposal between a human and a Zephyrian, Zixther said with what passed for a smile among his people. The Department of Interspecies Relations stays busy. And how's the new housing project going? Construction begins next month. Haven's Rest will be rebuilt as a permanent refuge for displaced families from any species. Zixther looked proud. The Drachnary High Command has pledged to protect it rather than attack it. Lisa smiled. The refugee colony that had started all of Zixther's troubles was going to become a symbol of cooperation between species. With Drachnary soldiers serving as its guardians, I have been thinking, Zixther said quietly, about that night in the alley. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had just walked away? Lisa considered the question. Sometimes. But then I think about all the good things that came from it. Your people and mine working together. Other species learning to trust each other. Refugees getting a safe place to live. She gestured around. The busy diner filled with humans and aliens sharing meals and conversation. I think the galaxy is a little bit better because I decided to share my dinner. Zixther nodded slowly. In Drachnary philosophy, we believe that honor is not shown in great battles or grand gestures. True honor is shown in small moments when no one is watching and nothing is expected in return. Like feeding a hungry stranger. Like feeding a hungry stranger. As Lisa went back to work, she thought about how much her life had changed. She was no longer just a waitress in a small diner. Galactic news networks called her an ambassador of human values. University professors studied her story. In their classes about interspecies relations, children across the galaxy learned about the day when simple kindness changed the course of history. But at the end of each day, when she turned off the lights and locked the door of Murphy's Diner, Lisa still thought of herself as just someone who believed that everybody, no matter what they looked like or where they came from, deserved a hot meal and a friendly smile. And in a galaxy full of different species, learning to live together, maybe that was exactly what they needed.